Alright, so let's start looking at the overlay command and using modify with overlay to really do some things that we couldn't do in the past with version 2. But for version 3 we have some really neat functions built into the modify command. So let's get started. What I've got quilted out on my fabric here is a block, and it's broken out into 4 different elements, kind of like what you might see on a quilt. And then off to the side I have another block. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that area all at once. I'm going to select all the points along the block that define it, the corners, the center, and the block that's on the side. I'm going to do that all in one shot. And then I'm going to place the design, which I'm going to repeat in all of those blocks. I'm going to repeat that design over and over and over again, just using the overlay command. But I can choose the area just once. And you might find this useful on your quilt. Say you've got a row of blocks that you're going to be doing pretty much the same thing in, maybe different rotations of the same design, but you're going to be doing the same thing in a row of blocks, or maybe every other block you're going to use this single design. This might be helpful in that, doing it this way. It takes maybe just a little bit more time than doing the individual blocks one at a time, but it's user preference. It is kind of handy when you do this kind of block though, which is a large block where we're going to do multiple elements within a large block. So let's get started. So I'm going to choose my points once I get into pattern quilting here, and I'll set my 0, and I'm going to set my points going around to define this block. And I'm just going, and I'm catching the midpoint of each line, which is where the cross lines go on this particular thing. Then I'm going to catch the middle. And remember, this area is really just guidance for you. And a little block off to the side. Okay, I'm going to be done with that. And you can see on here that it doesn't look like much of an area at all. I mean, but I have defined the space, and looking at this, maybe I would have chosen one more point down toward the middle left there, so that I wouldn't have that diagonal line crossing through it. But I can see exactly where I want things to go. It's good enough for me. So I'm going to go into all my designs, and I know my design is named GTBL0020. It's a leaf design from actually our version 1 collection, but it works for this demonstration. So I press search and I type in 00, actually I need not 00, but I need 0020 and say OK. And there it is. There are the results for 0020. I've got a GTBL, a GTBR, a GTCR, which is a corner, a lighten up block, and a lighten up edge to edge. Well, this is the one I want, this GTBL 0020. So I press that, and it's placed that design into the area. Well, we need to modify it because that's just kind of all over the place. So we modify it, and I'm going to rotate it minus 45 degrees. And I'm going to scale it. I'm just going to tap the scale and see what 100 does and how close that is. Well, that's a little bit too small. So I'm going to bring that up. And I'm using gesturing here. Just bringing that up to that size. And I'll nudge it just a little bit but I'm happy with that placement. So I'll say done, and then move to start. And I need to pull up my bobbin thread. And press go. And we'll let that quilt out. It's going to go a little bit fast forward here, and we'll catch up at the end when it's finished quilting. All right, so I broke my thread here. So this is a good opportunity now to show you the % restart function. So let's take advantage of this little happening here. So let me get my thread all taken care of. Let me get it back down to the needle, and then I'll go through the restart function with you. Okay, so I've got my thread through the needle, and let's hit % restart here. And we are ready to do a % restart. And when we do that, on the screen we see the design and the current location of the carriage. So let's choose a percentage, say 50% here. And that's right there. And now let's move ahead 100 nodes at a time. Let's see, yep, I've done that. I'm looking at what I've quilted. Okay, and I was on my way up the spine, and it broke right around in here. You don't have to get this is just helpful to put the dot or put the crosshairs close to where the thread broke. It's not by any means necessary. We can choose that point no matter where the carriage is. So I'm going to zoom in, and I see the orange dot, and I'm going to move just a couple of nodes back. There we go. And then forward, and that's where we want to restart. Let's go back just a little bit, maybe to that node. We'll move to the restart position. Pull up our bobbin thread. And then press go. So you can see with V3, the restarting after a thread break is very, very simple to use. Simple to do. We just choose the point where we want to go to, and then press go. All right, so we're done with this first segment in this first block. I'm going to pull up my thread here, or pull up my needle, excuse me, and I'm going to also grab and trim my threads because we're going to be moving to the other block, and I don't want the threads connected. So we will pull up the bobbin thread and trim that. Okay, so now we're free to move about the quilt. So at this point, for safety's sake, actually, you know what I didn't do before I started quilting this, I didn't save the pattern. So I've made some adjustments to this, and if something happened, I lost power or whatever, I couldn't duplicate this scale exactly. So let's go in and save this pattern, and I'm going to call it leaves space rotated, and we'll say OK, and it saves that pattern. All right, so now we're going to go into Overlay and Modify. And what we do here is we have a choice. We can either rotate it or mirror it or just translate it. And I think what's appropriate in this instance is to mirror it. So I press the mirror button, the vertical mirror button, which is right under the undo step button. And I've mirrored it. Now the new image is in red. So once it's in red, it looks a little confusing, but I'm going to gesture it over to the other block, just like that. And I'm going to zoom in, press my pan and zoom button, zoom in, and then do my final adjustment to make sure that it's on the same, about the same distance from the vertical line and at the same horizontal up and down distance. So I pan and zoom over, then I turn off pan and zoom, then I just use gesturing to align this. And that looks right about there. That looks pretty good to me. I'll nudge it down just a little bit. And then I'll double tap the screen, tap, tap, and I can see I'm a little close to the right-hand vertical part of that border, but I notice that I'm also a little close on the left-hand side, so it's probably, it would match almost identically to what I've done before, but I'll nudge it over just a bit to the left. I'll nudge it back one. But I'm okay with that. It's going to be a little close. And remember, I chose my points exactly on the line of the stitched out pattern on the quilt here. And normally you would come in 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch when you're selecting your area within your block anyway. So I should have given myself a little bit more clearance there. But this looks good. I'll say done. And then move to start. Pull up my bobbin thread. And away we go. All right, now I'll pull up my bobbin thread again. And we'll get ready to quilt the next part. So here, again, we'll just choose Overlay, Modify. This time we will use the horizontal mirror button. And I will gesture it down. It'll come down just a little bit, and that looks good to me. I'll say done and move to start. Pull up my bobbin thread. And press go. All right, we'll pull up our bobbin thread. And we will mirror it over for the last time to finish off this quartet of elements. Modify, and then we mirror one more time. Gesture it over. That looks good. We say done. Move to start. Pull up our thread. And press go. Okay, so we're at the end of our 4 blocks, and we have that one off to the side left to do. So, one last time, we hit Overlay, Modify, and we're going to bring this one over and then rotate it 45 degrees. And then let's actually rotate it 90, because I don't like that orientation. Yeah, that's too similar. Let's go another 45 to 135. There we go. And we can size it. And if it gets a little bit too small on the screen, remember, just use the pan and zoom. We can zoom in on it, then turn pan and zoom off when we want to actually modify it. I'm okay with it top and bottom. Let's go to non-proportional, stretch it out just a bit. Okay, I'm good with it like that. Say done. Move to start point. And press go. And that's how simple it is to use the overlay command. I find it to be a really powerful tool, especially if you know that when you're quilting something out, you know you're going to be doing something like we did in this little tutorial. If you're copying or basically mirroring the same design or rotating the same design around a center point, very easy to use. All you have to do at the outset is choose your area, and by area I mean really you just define the space that you're going to quilt in. Make sure you have enough points to define the space and all the little sub elements, and then you're ready to go. So that's it for now. Enjoy that feature, and until next time, happy quilting.